Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DIY episode of SeaPeople Live. I'm Logan, one of the co-founders of SeaPeople, and we are super excited to bring you the pros today. I grew up listening to a show called Car Talk. I don't know if anybody else listened to Click and Clack growing up, but it was one of my favorite shows, and we're really excited to hopefully grow this one and hopefully get our guests here today back for more of your questions live so you can get answers to those burning questions you have or get unstuck and get back underway and in the water. So we've got paint and fiberglass expertise here today from TotalBoat, and we have Kristin with us. We're really excited to have her here. And we also have Katie and Lyall from Sun Powered Yachts, one of the absolute go-to sources for solar and experts in that field. So we're really excited about that. Kristin, TotalBoat,
Hi, how you
how are you
doing?
today? Where are
Great.
you?
I'm at our HQ in Rhode Island. We're in Bristol, Rhode Island, which is the heart of sort of boat building in America right now. So we're well positioned, and it's a beautiful day here. I wish I was on my boat.
Can you give a really quick background on TotalBoat? I know, and maybe you could explain a little bit of the origins. I think there was a Jamestown distributors origin story there, possibly, and just
Definitely,
kind of
yeah.
tell us where and how TotalBoat came to be such a
Yeah,
huge
no
player.
problem. Sure. Total Boat is a family-owned company. Our founder is Mike Mills. He and his father had acquired Jamestown Distributors, or his father had really, in the 90s. And Mike was a young college graduate looking to do good things with his education. And his dad quickly grabbed him and brought him onto the Jamestown Distributors team. And he was really instrumental in going immediately to putting everything online at the turn of the century, basically. I can't believe I'm saying that. That's what it was. But so he put everything online. He really focused on giving instruction on YouTube at a very really in the infancy of YouTube, realizing that a lot of manufacturers of epoxies and paints and such already had crappy little videos to share that really helped the customer figure out how to get it done right. And I think Mike, really recognized that there were a lot of DIY boaters out there that were struggling with the products. The products for boating, it's really a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of catalyzation, and the resin and hardener system of an epoxy is sort of just the basics. We do it with paint too. So you really want to get a lot of it right. And so Mike thought we could sort of do as well as a lot of the companies that we were already distributing products for. The epoxies and paints that everybody is familiar with. We were all very familiar with here at Jamestown Distributors from selling it over and over again, answering all the questions, a lot of the same questions on a lot of these products. So he was trying to develop products that were really DIY friendly, cured faster, dried easier, didn't have to sand between coats, things that we knew were pain points.
Yeah.
And so we started with a 5-to-1 epoxy, which is the traditional sort of West system type epoxy that people are used to. We have a non-blushing high performance epoxy that's sort of our best epoxy right now. And we just kept developing from there. We did bottom paints, bilge paints, so sort of all the things that you need to maintain your boat as from a DIY perspective. So that's
Nice.
how it started.
Well, I
And
have to say, let's be clear here. TotalBoat and Sun Powered Yachts are volunteering their time here and are not paying to be here. There's no ads going on here. But I
oh,
do have to say that we had a fleet of boats in my previous life when we owned a sailing school, and Kristin really helped us get sorted with a lot of different products. And we do a ton of maintenance on our boats for years and years and years of boats get destroyed through the season of
yeah.
students, bashing them into docks, and they're in the Hudson River, which is notoriously bad for growth being brackish. And we switched exclusively to TotalBoat too late, honestly. Unfortunately, like a lot of people, I thought, oh, it's kind of a new brand. I didn't realize the Jamestown connection. I didn't
Right.
understand the experience level there. And when I switched, I either found no difference but things that were half the price, or I found a better difference and really, really
Good to
enjoyed
hear.
using the Total Boat product. And
Love it.
yeah, it's been really good. I think that anybody that can get it shipped to them someday, I'm
Yep.
sure you'll be global, but
We're trying
anybody
to
that can,
be global. Yes. Trying
yeah,
to take over the world, as we say here. So,
yeah,
yeah.
it was really fun to work with. And they're also awesome people that are an awesome company worth supporting. So,
Thank you. We try to do well with the customer service because it is complicated. So we appreciate that. Thank
yeah.
you.
Also, really good people worth supporting, Arcadia and
Thank
Lyall, Sun Powered Yachts. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your backstory for a couple minutes?
Katie, take the lead here.
I know, we'll fight for who's going to talk. I've been in solar for now going on like 18 years. And when Lyle and I met in St. Lucia at the finish of the arc, we just knew we wanted to combine our passions. And a few years later, we kind of were sitting in charter in Tahiti and wondering why there's no solar on these boats and running our engine for 6 hours. And yeah, it just kind of birthed the combination of, our passions combined. And we launched in 2018 in Annapolis and have been going strong ever since. It's just us running the company, and we live in Hawaii full time, but we spend a lot of time on our boat, which is in Virginia right now. And
I think, yeah, it was also having living off grid in Hawaii for, 12 plus years,
yeah,
really pulling in all our knowledge. And yeah, we launched in Annapolis 2018, and it was almost people were kind of laughing at us at the booth. Like, why do I need solar on my boat? It's really a big takeoff since then. Now you can't give people enough panels. So
it was cool to meet those customers 2 years ago when we went back and have them say, can I get more panels? Like there wasn't a single person that was like, tell me more about solar or, why do I need this? It's really shifting, and it's cool to be a part of that.
So quick question for you guys. Let's just roll into one. This was kind of a user question wasn't planning on talking about, but you said that people are kind of looking for more and more panels and more panels. Have panels actually gotten, since you started in 2018, do you get more power out of a smaller panel now? Has any of that actually progressed, or is it still kind of this desire to build as big of an arch as you can, as big of a bimini as you can, to hold as much, I guess, square footage as possible? Or are you actually able to get more bang for your buck now than you used to be able to?
I'd say it's small increments in terms of the efficiency. But the two brands we represent, Sun Power and Maxion, they really condense that power into a smaller space, smaller footprint. Definitely an advantage, but I think people really need to shift their usage mentality, let's say, and really go for that off-grid lifestyle of like using less rather than trying to just keep your mainland lifestyle or, power consumption.
No Keurigs, no, get a French press, no microwaves. I can't even tell you how many people call us and like, I'm running my air fryer. What, and we're like, this is not.
It's difficult.
Yeah. It's finding that balance, I guess, of boat life and your creature comforts and being efficient in your usage.
I think that's actually an interesting point, because especially since a lot of people are shifting to catamarans and a lot of these big cats are coming out, and we're seeing people starting to be able to take their jobs, their very high paying jobs, with them when they start cruising. We're seeing an explosion in boats that are over $1 million. And a lot of times that comes with people that don't want to give it all up, right? They don't want to give up the hair dryers, and they don't want to give these things up, and they have the budget to kind of expect to not have to give it up. And it seems like lithium has helped with that kind of thing big time. But it sounds like if you want to truly be able to hang out on anchor in the Tuamotus or remote Bahamas or somewhere and not be running a generator, you still need a fair amount of real estate for your solar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we always say the roof space is a premium on the boats. So it's really trying to jam in as much as you can, but maybe not taking it too far where you've got a helipad on the back of your boat. But yeah, just finding that happy medium. Yeah. And then also tapping into other renewables. We're definitely behind solar, but there's wind, hydro, other sources. But yeah, finding that balance.
So we've seen it too for us with people that want to build hardtop Dodgers, solar arches, stuff like that, where they're modifying the boat that they already have and trying to add that sort of real estate for them, just by using fiberglass and foam and building it. So that's possible too.
There aren't a lot of boat projects that give you this sovereignty and anonymity that solar kind of does, where you don't need a marina anymore. You can make your water on the sun. You can do all this stuff on the sun. And it's really kind of changed the game and the ability for people to cruise more remotely and live out on anchor and work out on anchor comfortably for weeks, months, if they wanted to. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts that we've seen being in this business for now 7 years, that it's, opening that door for people. Having 2 kW of solar and a big lithium bank is a game changer now.
Yeah. Kristin, what about at TotalBoat? I mean, have there been any, obviously it sounded what you said earlier, that you're constantly iterating and you're constantly improving and, doing things like letting breaststrokes fall out of the paint more easily and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure. But has anything really major changed, or any big breakthroughs in the science of paint and fiberglass? I mean, since you've been with TotalBoat, or is it kind of just slow, continuous improvements?
Yeah, I think it's slow, continuous improvements. I mean, I think the story of marine composites is something that you mentioned right away, Logan, which is brand loyalty. Like, it's important enough that your boat float and not become unglued or whatever people might suspect could happen. That doesn't happen unless you use, like craft store epoxy or something. But no, I think that you want to use a brand that you trust. And so we've had to sort of break into that brand loyalty by just showing that, at a very simple level, our products last. They work, they're easy to use. We have great customer support. And at the end of the day, a lot of it is approximately the same kind of a product. And you want to pick a company that's going to support you, that has good resources for getting you through the job. We work really hard on our website and our videos so that people can, in the middle of a project, if we don't have our call team or our live chat ready, that they can go to the webpage and figure it out on their
Yeah.
own.
All right.
Yeah,
William had a question.
it was just that one there about the water maker. I think it really depends. We've had a DC water maker, Schenker. We put it in before the Atlantic crossing in 2021. Makes 30 liters an hour. Probably pulls, I think it's 90 watts, 100 watts. It's really low.
It's like 6 amps or something. It's really low.
Pretty low. But yeah, that's a DC powered one, which we love. We've got friends who had an AC water maker and then they lost their generator. So now they've lost their water maker. So they were rafting up against their buddy boat and, siphoning some water across from their buddy boat. So yeah, it's kind of maybe thinking that through as well, giving yourself some redundancy in your systems.
Nice. When you guys leave your boat, you've been leaving your boat for quite a while, right? You leave it for long stretches. You do the full pickling process and all that on your water maker when you take off to preserve the membranes.
Correct. Yeah. I almost wish there was a better way when you first do the installation to have that kind of set up so it's easier to do, and maybe to factor that in when you do your own installation. It doesn't really suggest it in the manual, but just having a way to more easily tap into it and make that happen rather than we're doing buckets and it gets a bit Frankenstein, but I'm sure there's easier ways to set it up.
But yeah, I feel like for water making, put it into perspective. It isn't, if you have the whole day and there's 10 hours of sun and you can make water with the power of the sun in the daytime at a low, amperage or wattage, like get a DC system and just make it for 3 hours and not think twice about the power draw that you're using versus getting, 60 liter an hour, 100 liter an hour one and running it for just an hour on really high power that you won't be able to draw direct from the sun, or an AC unit where you're drawing then from your inverted power and, going through an inverter. But yeah, we're really big on simplified systems, a lot of DC stuff. If you can take your generator off your boat and plug the hole, that's the ultimate goal.
Nice. Yeah. Let's jump into a quick question that we had come in beforehand. This one is for Kristin. This is from Riku from Kotka, Finland. I hope I pronounced all of that correctly. Is it really worth spending extra on 2-part polyurethane paints, or is a 1-part good enough for a weekend cruising kind of boat?
I can definitely answer that. I mean, it really depends. Like the weekend cruising thing says to me that they're a little less picky. I think a 2-part paint is a harder paint, and for that reason, it's harder to repair. So if you see yourself needing to do any repairs, a 1-part paint is definitely your friend. It's a lot easier to put an entire coat of 1-part on than 2-part, but a 2-part paint, it is a little bit harder. I mean, they sort of are about the same looking. It's just the performance of what's harder, and it's a little harder to put on a 2-part paint. We sell only a 1-part paint called Wet Edge. It's pretty easy to put on. You put on a bunch of multiple thin coats, and that way you've got a little bit of depth there too. So if you chip or ding or hit the dock, we get the hit the dock example like way too often.
Yeah.
Stop hitting the docks, but it's good for business, so that's all right. But
yeah, the 1-part's typically a little softer. Is the 2-parts get harder, like more of a candy shell, or that's a myth?
I mean, it is catalyzed, like the 2-part thing. It's back to sort of the chemistry thing. It's not that the 1-part paint is not hard, right? Tom, I have Tom, the expert behind me here. Is there anything I should mention?
It's just 1-part's obviously a bit easier to apply, right? You don't have to catalyze it, technically have to thin them.
It's a lot of application.
You put them on in nice thin shells. They are not quite as hard as a 2-part, so the catalyzed finishes, but they are very hard. They are very durable. They are, of course, made to stand up to what's going to happen on a boat. So they are very durable. Neither the 2-part or the 1-part are fully waterproof, so they're both extremely water resistant. So they're going to be very similar in that regard. The main difference with 2-part versus 1-part is going to be 1-part's a little bit easier to repair. 2-parts are going to be a little bit better.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the big takeaway there, and just for anybody that, for a little context, we're talking about topside paint for the most part here. So this is like the paint, the colored paint that you'd see on the side of your boat, even if you're white or blue or red or whatever the color your boat is. We're not talking about bottom paint here for the most part, or the paint that's on your top on deck, but not your non-skid. So great, that's
it's easier
a good
to
breakdown.
apply a 1-part. It basically comes down to that, and a lot of DIY people want to just roll it on and go, and a 2-part. You might, like a boatyard's never going to put on a 1-part. They're going to spray, they're going to put on a 2-part, they're going to be done. So it's a little bit more DIY friendly.
Before the weather took my connection away, this kind of rolls into a little bit of what I wanted to ask you earlier, Kristin, which is, and what I think is so cool about how much help you guys provide with people is it seems like so many of the issues people have are not product issues, they're human issues, right? There's the classic stories about people that buy a brand new boat and they get a bunch of gel coat crazing and everybody laughs and calls it the Friday boat, right? They're like, oh, the guys and girls at the boatyard were ready to get out there. They catalyzed it a little too hot. It was brittle gel coat. And it kind of has always made me feel like, when you get something that doesn't stick well or that cracks too easy or something like that, the question is, what was the human error here? The products are kind of, as you've said, pretty scientifically dialed. This is going to go into another question that I'm not going to read in full, but I'd seen earlier from a user, which was humidity related and asking about bottom painting, if humidity actually matters for something as hardy as bottom paint. Is humidity a factor for bottom paint like it is for these topside paints we're talking about?
No, not the same for a bottom paint at all. You can almost paint like right before a rainstorm with bottom paint. A lot of people are painting where their poppets were and they're launching a little bit after. So it's way more forgiving than a bottom paint. The bottom paint is more forgiving than topside. With topside, when you're about to start that job, you want to check the weather. Like you said, Logan, you want to check the humidity. You really want as many things right as you can get right. And that means in your surface prep, in wiping, you should wipe again. And so that's where a lot of things can go wrong. All of those little pieces sort of have to go right in order for everything. And it's not hard. It just really comes down to following directions, and that can be hard. So it tends to be whenever we get a question about something didn't cure or something that went wrong, we roll it back. How did you start?
Yeah, of
Where
course.
did you what did you do first? What is on there first? Did you remove it enough? Did you prep it enough? And that's the whole human thing, because it's chemicals, it's bonds. So you just want to get it all right so that all works right. And then it is pretty fail safe, but certainly the humans, like to pick things up.
I'm going to roll that right into something for Katie and Lyall. And it's kind of the first question. It seems like solar power has gotten a lot easier. Like a lot of the connectors, a little bit more plug and play, and the charge controllers seem very much more DIY friendly. I'm curious if you find that too. It's easier to get product to people to DIY without being a professional. And I want to ask that in parallel with this question from Riley in Sitka, Alaska. It says, I live full time and want to power a fridge, lights, and laptop for the most part. 40-foot simple boat. So many different calculators give me different wattage amounts. Do you have a ballpark? I'd rather have too much than too little anyway. So it sounds like a really simple 40-foot boat. Maybe that's an impossible thing to calculate, or do you have a ballpark for him, and how DIY can he be on the installation?
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's definitely, solar is pretty DIY for the most part. A lot of our installations, they are DIY. Maybe once you get into the larger, heavier fixed frame panels, bigger systems, you might bring on an installer, maybe even just run all the wires yourself and have a marine electrician come in for the final hookup to the batteries. But yeah, for the most part, DIY. That's how I would say, have gained popularity with putting the bundles together.
Yeah.
When we first started off, it was just the panels. Now we're, the wiring, the controllers, the whole system, and we'll ship it to you and install it yourself. In terms of a guide on how much wattage you need, you can divide the panel wattage by 3, and that gives you an estimated daily yield in ampere hours. So without getting too techie, that's kind of a quick sheet to figure out some numbers. So a 100-watt panel, it's going to give you like 33 ampere hours in a day, 12 volts.
So for a 40-foot boat, probably has a mid-size fridge that's doing, 6 amp hours when it's running? Something like that.
Exactly. It's going to be cycling. So good 50 ampere hours for a day for a fridge would be just a ballpark number.
Okay.
We have a liveaboard. I want to say it's on our website. It's either in the shop or on the install page, but it's a table we made when we first started the business, actually. And I kind of charted like a weekender, somebody who's just out day sailing, or somebody who's living aboard, and did different usage profiles. And, assuming like an average 40-foot boat, and, kind of put the lights and other things, nav equipment, stereo, some things that you might be using, and kind of gave like a rough estimate of how many watts you would anticipate needing to cover those loads. So definitely check out our website. We have a lot of tips and, calculations and things like that to help guide people as to what might suit them.
So to get Riley kind of a little bit of a recap there, I would say that if your fridge is drawing 50, you're going to multiply that by 3, that's 150. Exactly. So if you did nothing but run your fridge, you need at least 150 watts.
Yeah, it's the power hog, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's how we always found, Caroline and myself, with our cruising. It was almost, without fail, our fridge on our very simple, about 40-foot boat was our biggest draw was the fridge. So especially if you're going to LED lights, which I could not say more about making the switch to getting your house
Yeah.
lights down below, even if you're just buying the bulbs and not doing the whole fixture. But the LED lights are a game changer. So, okay, perfect.
Touching on the fridge really quick, because we've tried it when we lived off grid, is turning it off at night. We have that question a lot. Can I shut down my fridge at night? But to be honest, it's going to use more power to
Ramp up.
cool back down in the morning.
Cool
So you're
itself
better off
back
just
down.
stabilizing that temperature. And
Because you're not opening it at night either. So whatever's there is just going to stay pretty constant, versus in the daytime, you're getting things out more regularly and opening the door. But I want to
Yeah.
say for a liveaboard, we estimated 400 to 600
Yeah.
watts or for base level. So it's not crazy,
Yeah.
to be able to maintain and be autonomous with just those basic things.
Awesome. All right, Kristin, I'm coming back to you for this one. Unless I have a burning question from anybody that's live right now. Let me just pop over to the Q&A and take a peek. William's got another one. And
There's an
I'll
early one
come
there
back
too
to
in the Q&A.
the water maker one. I think they already covered.
What's the best
At the
way
top.
to infiltrate soft spots on the deck? See that one?
Oh, gotcha. Nope,
the
it's
top.
gone because my power went out and I lost
Oh.
you guys. I
I
lost you
could
guys.
answer that if you want.
Okay, Kristin, yeah, can you just read the question for
Sure.
him and go ahead
What
and
is the
answer
best
for him?
product to infiltrate soft spots on the deck? Is there a penetrating solution or are they not effective and you should just dig it all out? Is the question.
That's a great question.
That's a good question. In general, you never want to bury anything that's soft. It means that there's a loss of adhesion or a loss of the composite there. There's some material missing. There's probably some moisture in there. So if you can get to it, you do want to dig it out. If you can't get to it, you could inject a penetrating epoxy into that area, which is a thinned epoxy. So you could put it into like a syringe or something and literally inject it in there and let it cure. And then you would go about grinding and sort of, making sure that it's all solid again. And then you can go ahead and build it back up with whatever you're doing. I guess if this was on deck, maybe you're using a tread paint or something like that, or a little paint. You could certainly put paint over gel coat. People love to gel coat, but it's easier to just paint and then tape it off and make your deck. So yeah, don't bury anything soft, and certainly try to make it solid either by getting rid of it or inserting some penetrating epoxy that'll do that job for you.
And as a follow-up there, we working with J-boats for all these years that had balsa cores on deck. If you don't want to dig it out, if you can at least dry it out, if you're storing your boat for the winter, go underneath the deck and just drill 10 holes on the underside and let it weep for the winter and drain. And then you're at least injecting that penetrating epoxy into something that's dry, which is awesome.
Yeah, you want it dried out first as much as you can. Definitely. Yeah.
So you were just talked about deck. So let's go right into a question about deck and covering up that repair. Sarah from Dunedin, Florida. I've never heard of Dunedin, Florida. Question is additive to the paint or non-skid paint? Are they actually any different? So I guess the question there is the non-skid paint just taking the additives you can buy and putting it in paint, or is there anything different there?
Yes. I mean, the difference, we've done it so that we color match our topside paint and the deck paint. And yes, we just have the additive in the same sort of a paint. So you can add, there's, what's it called? Soft sand. Soft sand is the stuff that you would add to a regular paint. So if you wanted to do that and just add that to the topside paint you had, you could do that, but we did it for you. You certainly, like anything else with sort of that kind of a mixture, you want to really stir well because it'll settle to the bottom, and that sort of sand or the grip will be on the bottom. So you got to stir well and then apply. But
do you have any tips, Kristin, for when you're actually rolling the non-skid? Because I always had issues with the actual grit that's in there ending up in different spots in the pan as I was rolling, and then I'd roll one out. Is that an issue where you thin it more, or what would actually
you want to
help?
do a couple coats, make sure, just add more paint, because again, you're stepping on it and things are hitting it. You probably have blocks and stuff like that might be whacking it. More is better. It's just going to protect better. It's going to even it out. Unless, sometimes you can sort of sprinkle a little in places that it didn't go and paint on top of it, but your best bet is just to apply several coats. Make sure it's really well mixed and that you feel like your mixture is even too, and don't dilly-dally so it's settling in between your little mixes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's shift gears and take one then for one of the questions that came in online for Katie and Lyall here. Mateo from Valencia, Spain. What is the actual difference, or the practical difference, between monocrystalline and polycrystalline panels?
Polycrystalline is kind of the older panels that you used to see that are like a bluish tone. It's actually multiple chunks of silicon that they mush together, and then they cut the cells from that. Poly meaning more than one.
has a marbled look.
Yeah, and they're
Okay.
definitely an older generation. Pretty much now, you don't really see polycrystalline anymore. You'd maybe find that in like a depot or, a used shop or something that somebody probably took off. I don't know many manufacturers that are still making polysilicon. Everything's kind of switched over to mono, which means they cut the cell from one ingot of silicon. So the cells are more uniform. They're all black usually, or
Yep.
dark blue.
More efficient with monocrystalline.
Yeah, they're more efficient, and it's really helped drive efficiency of cells and panels up in the last decade for sure.
The flexible panels, those are all monocrystalline as well.
Those are all monocrystalline, but not all mono is the same. So Maxion monocrystalline has a solid copper backsheet. That's what they've patented, and that's kind of what sets them apart from all other monocrystalline solar cell manufacturers and panel manufacturers. So they are more efficient than their other monocrystalline. Oftentimes you'll see black cells with kind of silver lines on the front. That's actually baked on aluminum paste. And those are your connection points. So when one of those fails, that cell fails. So it's much more efficient to have that solid copper backsheet. And that's what allows them to flex, because all the diodes are on the back. So they have that ability to flex without cracking. Whereas if you had a polysilicon cell and you dropped a pen on it, it would shatter completely. In sun power, you physically have to break to do that. So that there are differences among the monosilicon.
Yeah, I think different different technologies that have just changed over time. So yeah, you're probably not going to see polycrystalline as much. Mono's where it's at.
That's perfect. And then just to kind of follow up on the flexible panels, because I know a lot of people are trying to move to flexible panels and get them onto Dodgers and Biminis and take the curve of their hard tops that they're building that Kristin was talking about a second ago.
Yeah.
Can you get anywhere close to the efficiency out of these flexible panels? And you're even seeing the boat builders starting to, seems like, permanently affix them. I know H&H Catamarans has like hard tops that are fully integrated. Are they getting closer to the same efficiency as a?
Yeah, it's the same cells. So it's the same.
They're all sun power. They're all Maxion cells.
So it's the same cell, same efficiency. You're just wrapping it in a different package. Let's say instead of a glass top sheet with an aluminum frame, bigger, heavier. You're now putting it in a high-grade UV-resistant polymer, so super thin, super lightweight.
And what about the heat, though? I mean, if those get put against something flat and there's no way for air to get underneath them, does that reduce the efficiency of them?
It does, yeah. All panels, they perform better when they're cooler. So if you can bring in that extra bit of airflow underneath, more important on a hard top, not so much the Biminis, the canvas Biminis. We've definitely taken temperature readings with a laser gun.
Airflow coming under the Bimini all the time, and over the top usually. The hard top, not so much, especially if it's got like glass in around the cockpit or something, and it's, your boat's up for the season and it's all shut up. There's no airflow coming underneath. It's not like you have your forward hatches open and things are flowing through. So we're kind of against, in a lot of ways, what these people are doing and putting all these cells and bedding them in the hulls, because if one goes bad, you're going to need a lot of TotalBoat products to fix.
Keep doing it. Kristin says keep doing it.
To fix that. And I think, even just what happened with the winds and their boat and their solar, having all of that having to get ripped off. We actually chatted with Seth. We met him in Tahiti actually for a Christmas randomly. We were in the same anchorage in the winter in Tahiti. So it was pretty rainy and had kids, but we got to know him during that time and confronted him a couple of years ago at the boat show when all these HHs were coming out and saying, how is this going to do with heat? What do you're embedding them all in. How do you deal with maintenance and all this? And he kind of brushed us off, and now they've had all these issues. So it's definitely something to really consider.
It really depends on the cells they're using and the panels they're using.
Or how many you're seriesing together in those in-hull arrays. Like it could be 60 cells that they're linking all together. Yeah. Our really good friend is a captain of a 80-foot Eco Sunreef that has all the sun power cells embedded in the hulls, and he goes with his FLIR camera and checks every day. Hot spots and all of that. So it's definitely something to be mindful of. It's not a set it and forget it like our traditional fixed frame or a flexible panel that's pre-wired and, encased is, definitely an option, but something to consider more in depth of how those factors are going to impact your particular vessel.
Yeah, great. Good answer. I'm going to roll with that into another installation question from Vince from Sarasota, Florida, asking you all if I can wire my solar panels directly to my batteries with a fuse, or do I really need a controller?
100%. Yeah, I need a charge controller these days. Or, we've been very happy with the Victron equipment. Everybody loves it. Pretty bulletproof. And that's MPPT controllers, so maximum power point tracking. An older technology you might see is PWM controllers, pulse width modulation. But yeah, these days everyone's going MPPT, which really gives you an extra boost. It brings the higher voltage panel, drops it down, and gives you more amps, essentially, more power.
It's also monitoring your battery and talking to it all the time. So it's never overcharging or, going to damage your batteries, where the PWM doesn't regulate any of that. It's just going to charge till it fries your battery. So spend the extra $50, $100 and get an MPPT. A lot of them are all under warranty. I mean, they're great products, and it's worth it if it's the power system on your vessel.
Good advice. All right, switching gears, Kristin, so that you don't get too bored over there. Josh, Homer, Alaska. When I have time to do work on my boat, it's below freezing. Can I still do small fiberglass repairs using a faster hardener, or what's the best route?
Temperature is everything for epoxy, and the hardener speeds play along with that game as well. A fast hardener is not your friend in the tropics, but is really your friend in a place like Alaska, where it's going to want to catalyze very quickly and cure. The longer it cures, like a slow or a medium hardener, it has time to be subjected to those temperatures. So you really just want to get it to cure fast hardener. You could also, like if you can bring the part or even the epoxy bottle inside, what you don't want to do is, have your project and your everything outside. So you want to make sure your epoxy is not at a frozen temperature too.
That's a really good tip. I think that people, especially with paints, gloss over is the temperature of the product before you start to apply it. Sometimes there's not much you can do about the fact that your deck is in the full sun before you start rolling.
It's gonna go a lot faster. You better be ready for your deck in the sun. Like, you have to prep differently for the side that's in the sun and the side that's in the shade, and you want to prepare and plan accordingly. And there is a minimum temperature for epoxy too, which really is in the 50s. So much below 50, you got to figure out how to warm up whatever you're working on. It doesn't want to cure. So the fast hardener will help. You can't do it in the 30s and 40s and stuff. So he will have to figure out, a sunny day or warming up the epoxy. And you could build little tents too around things in a very primitive way that would probably surprise you. As long as they're well monitored, like a little heater or a heat gun, I just wouldn't leave anything unattended, but certainly warm up your area and your product, like we said.
So I've been excited for this question just because of where it came from, and I'm gonna and coming right after Alaska, it's even better. So the opposite kind of temperatures, Priya from Goa, India. This is kind of a cool little splash of the SeaPeople users, like kind of around the globe, actually. What causes small bubbles under fiberglass sheeting when I lay it up? So I'm not sure if that question is about those bubbles are happening, they've rolled the bubbles out and they're coming back, or maybe they just don't know about rolling out the glass when they're laying it down.
You really got to get all the bubbles out with your spreader or with a fin roller, which is that metal roller that has the sort of like ribs on it. And that is specifically to push all that air out. Any little air bubble that remains there is going to be a problem in the future. So you really want to work as hard as you can. So much so that you might, after that layup has cured, go and slice it open with a little razor blade and put more epoxy in there while it's still available to you.
And can you overwork the glass, Kristin? Is there a point where like you should stop rolling it, or just roll until you
it really has to do with the epoxy. Once the epoxy is not able to be worked anymore, then you want to stop trying to apply it. It's going to stop working
when it starts getting sticky. Starts to kick off. Yeah. Cool.
You want to saturate the heck out of that.
And make sure it's
all the way through. All that fiberglass has to be saturated. Air is the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, Ellen, Alusten, Norway. I butchered that one. When I'm running the engine, does the solar charger turn off? So I don't know if this person's having a problem with overcharging and that's why they're asking this question, or they're going to do it their own installation. But I think that's a good question that I've always been curious about too. And that alternator's humming and pumping juice into the batteries. What's going on with your solar system?
Yeah, it's actually a question we get quite a lot. Should I be going to turn off my solar as soon as I've started the engine? But you don't have to. When that alternator gives a big spike in battery voltage, your solar controller is going to recognize that and just hold back any potential solar that could come through. You're still going to see like a little bit trickling through. It's not like it totally shuts it down, but yeah, just holds it back.
So that goes back to Vince from Sarasota's question earlier about wiring directly to the batteries with just the fuse. I think that's like the ultimate, okay, there's a good reason to have that controller and make sure that everything is being monitored by the system. So
exactly. Going back to that as well, in the old days, I think people did try to hook up their panels directly to the battery. And what would happen, the battery would feed back into the panel at night. So you actually drain the battery through the solar panel.
Do you recommend switching the systems? Like, do you having a switch on your solar system so you can shut it off, or just panels, controller, batteries?
That's pretty much it. Yeah. Well, so you should have you absolutely want a breaker between the MPPT and the battery bank. So that needs to be appropriately sized. Okay. You don't have to have one between the panels and the MPPT. A few customers like to add it, especially on larger panels or higher voltage panels.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me roll that right into this question from Alexio. It says, do I have to disconnect my panels before doing work on the batteries or the system? And I am actually excited for this question because we've had battery issues over the years, and we've also sometimes disconnect batteries when we leave the boat for a while. And I always just go up there and throw a blanket over the panels before I touch anything. And so curious if things have to be disconnected when you're working on the system.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. With the Victron controllers, you can actually turn them off in the app. So you just go into the settings and just shut down your controller, and that's kind of one way to do it. You could trip the breaker between the MPPT and the battery bank. That's going to protect you there. But yeah, covering the panels is a good thing to do, especially if you're disconnecting or connecting the actual panel themselves, the MC4 connectors.
Yeah, the MC4 connectors and the leads. Or say you're taking your flex panels off because it's hurricane season and you're putting your boat away. If the sun is out when you're doing that, you can really get hurt if you don't cover the panel before you disconnect it and kind of take away the energy from.
Okay. No, that's a good tip then. I mean, that's always usually you're up there reconnecting things when you're commissioning and the sun's out.
Flip the panel over.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn it upside down, easy to do with the flex. Do it after dark.
Yeah.
Or, they call it DC arcing. So you can go on YouTube. It depends on the voltage you're playing around with, but you're essentially those two metal connections inside. When you're separating them as well, you can get this DC arcing. So if you YouTube it, you'll see some crazy high voltage episodes.
Yeah, some fun, some frizzy hair. We are getting some good in-depth answers here. I want to do a little bit of a rapid round. I have quite a few more questions that people had submitted. So I do want to try to get as many of these covered as possible. Kristin, I'm going to roll through a few, and we're going to keep the answers short and fun and to the point. And let's just fire away here. Ollie, Scotland, I did a rush job on my anti-fouling last season, and now it's flaking off in patches. Do I spot sand and touch it up, or did I really mess this one up?
I would sand off as much as you can of the whole bottom and just get down as far as you can that you're comfortable with and move on. But definitely you want to make sure you sand those patches that are flaking off like that. I mean, it's supposed to flake. It's probably an ablative flaking off paint unless it's a hard paint, and in which case that's what it does. But that means there's something under there that's not happy again. So you probably want to remove as much as you can and move on.
Maybe there was something. They lifted the boat out of the lift well and there was oil in the water or something at the time when it came out, or just bad sanding job.
Or some unremoved, animals under there or something.
Yeah. Noah, Newport, Oregon. Is there a rule of thumb on how many coats of barrier coat you actually need? And I'm going to have a follow-up on this one, Kristin, but I'll let you start with that.
I just did this job. The picture of me that you used for this was me barrier coating my bottom. We coated our bottom with 5 coats. It's a mil thickness that you want to get to, and Tom's going to tell me what that is. I can't remember. You want to put as much barrier coat as you can. You get a couple, at least, 3 or 4 on there, because you're basically putting a barrier coat onto bare gel coat or an untouched bottom. And then you're going to put your bottom paint on top of that. And you want to sort of do it in the same day. And that becomes then a chemical bond which is the strongest. How many mils did you?
8 to 12 mils.
8 to 12 mils, but nobody's out there like with a
How do you
mil
know? Well,
thickness
I mean,
thing.
it's impossible, like for a regular person, right? When we roll it on to go, okay,
Right.
that coat was how many mils thick? So you said about 3 to 4 coats if you're
Yeah, we
starting
did
from
4 coats.
scratch.
We alternated colors on the bottom of our boat so that we could tell after, we could tell when we were starting to go through one coat to another to sort of stay on top of it. And you never want to go through, that first coat we had sort of made the darkest. So we knew if we were getting back down to there that it was time to apply more. So
That's a
yes.
great tip and a great trick that it took too long to pick up in my own DIY life,
Okay.
which was alternating colors for bottom paints and things like the barrier coats and knowing when you've rubbed through things. And then sometimes it's hard to tell for second coats what's already been painted. Some paints don't go on with quite as much shine before they dry. And you're like, wow, I'm really not sure if I'm getting full coverage here. So
It's true. You
that's
could
a
always
great
just
tip.
Scotch Brite something and be able to tell easily that way.
Yeah.
So
quick one from Leo Lundenberg, Nova Scotia. I've seen gel coat touch-up kits. Are they good? Essentially, I guess he's asking, sorry, the spelling's a little off here. Nova Scotia, you speak English. Come on, man. Asking, I guess, if he needs to repaint typically when there's a gel coat spot, needing to go all the way to a break point and paint the whole side, or if the gel coat kits actually are any good.
I mean, the gel coat kit is just what you're going to put in that spot. It's about how you blend it into the rest of the hull. I mean, it's just basically like a thickened paint. You can actually make it a little thicker to fill a deeper hole by using a thickening agent like silica or something, but it's about how you finish it because gel coat is a game of buffing and sanding and buffing and shining and stuff. And you really just have to buff it to the right finish. So color matching makes that really hard to do. Like if you have a white, I'll just use white gel coat. Good luck. Your white is not white. And so it's hard. So when people ask how to gel coat, a lot of times we like to say, open a can of paint because it's a heck of a lot easier. So
yeah, maybe just start. Yeah, that's a great point. There are hundreds of whites. It is
we have a
hard
great
to get
video
the
on
match.
making a white gel coat, but it's not easy. We'll tell you that. So, get out your sander, your buffer.
I wish I had time to get to the rest of these. I've got one more that is a lot of those have kind of been beginner DIY questions. This looks like somebody that's trying to get into some more serious boat building. Malik, is vacuum bagging something worth learning as a solo intro boat builder? I don't know if this person's building dinghies or what, but or is it too much gear to mess with? So I guess, is vacuum bagging give you a finished product that is that much better, or what are you saving by vacuum bagging?
Vacuum bagging sucks. Like we talked about getting all of the resin through all those coats of the fiberglass or composite, whatever you're using. The vacuum bagging basically is suction and it just pulls it and makes sure that it is absolutely penetrated very, very evenly. And it pulls suction overnight. So you're going to bag something and leave it overnight, which means like you better have a lot of the bag and the tape and the suction and stuff. So people will vacuum bag parts because it's more convenient. And that's a really nice way to make sure that you did a really good part, even if it's like a surf fin or something like that. A small part. When you start vacuum bagging like really big parts, it becomes a lot harder. And if you're good at fiberglassing and good at making sure that everything's penetrated and good, then you don't really need to. But if it's certainly what pros do, but they also will vacuum bag an entire hull. So it's the setup and it's not cheap. A vacuum pump, I think we sell one on Jamestown Distributors like over $500. So it's not a cheap, and you would need, the suction depends on how big and the vacuum, all those things.
I've heard horror stories of people, using the shop vac that they have and not understanding how powerful the shop vac is. And they go to vacuum bag a piece of deck or something. They actually, reverse the curve and things like that. So
you could do a lot of harm. You really have to know. And you don't want to just use any old vacuum. It's a low, consistent suction that pump has. So it's very specific. If you don't know what you're doing, just avoid it. But it sounds like Malik. Try it out, Malik. Let us know how it goes.
Try something small, Malik. Let's go with something small to start with here. All right. I don't have tons more solar questions. I'm going to quickly read through what's left here. This one, Finn, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this location, but Finn is in Ireland, and I'm unsure how to properly ground a solar system on a fiberglass boat. Does it matter? So earlier we were talking about panels, controller, batteries. Is it simple and your system, you're tapping into an existing ground system, or how does that work?
There's not really any grounding. It's just going into the battery system, and more important on RVs, I think, than boats. It's something even on the fixed frame panels, Sometimes there's a little grounding screw. You just don't have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, that's easy.
Pretty
You're
easy.
You're welcome, Finn, in Ireland. That was probably the answer that you wanted to get. Fred, Key Largo, Florida. I want to mix AGM and lithium. I think this is an important question because lithium is so expensive and people are probably trying to figure out how to slowly get their way into lithium as opposed to buying, everything at once. What is the mixing of lithium and AGM? Possible, not possible?
Yeah, I can say that. Yeah, it is possible. Yeah, typically, your house bank is what's going to be lithium, and your starter battery is going to be traditional lead acid, whether that's AGM or, something you're topping up the water with. Yeah, then you can have ACR relay switches we spoke about, just touched on that earlier, but you can have a house bank that's lithium, starter battery that's lead acid, and a charger that can, send all the power to the house bank, and then the house bank charges your starter battery.
Okay.
Or it's using that ACR relay to overflow and charge the lithium battery. Sorry, charge the lead acid battery.
So it's doable, but I guess you need to be careful on your controllers and how you're sending power to the different style batteries, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It might be worth saving up for a little bit longer, Fred, and, getting the lithium all at once and making the swap. Earlier on as well, Lyall, you said something about the DIY capabilities of all the solar stuff available these days, and then having a electrical professional do the final hookup. Is that because of insurance? Is that because of ABYC, or is that just to make sure everything is good? Like, is that good housekeeping, or is that actually gonna harm your insurance?
No, more just if you're not completely confident in the battery hookup and making those final connections. Often the hard parts is pulling the wires from the panels all the way down through the boat and snaking it. So you're saving, money doing that yourself. And yeah, it's just, whether your batteries are in different lockers and how they're coming together, and you want to make sure you're charging the bank as a whole correctly. So yeah, just making sure that final hookup is correct.
I'd say a lot of our troubleshooting questions we get from people during installs is like, oh, my panels aren't working. What's going on? And it's often just a super simple thing where they brought their two wires down and they put the wrong negative to positive and they're not going to work. So when you are bringing the wires down, make sure to tape the end and label it, because it's really easy to mix it up and it's hard to then, know where it started from the top if you've brought it all the way down below and, you're in the hole.
Yeah.
But yeah, very quickly they're like, oh, now everything works. Just getting that right wiring in the right place in the charge controller.
I think as well, I noticed a question about sort of 48-volt battery banks.
Yeah, in the chat.
Bringing in a marine electrician if that's, if you're dealing with higher voltages.
Absolutely.
People get a little twitchy there. So
a lot of these electric boats are kind of being 48 volt from the factory now. With anything ocean volt or anything that's hybrid or has, an electric motor, it now is a mandatory 48 volt. So that's why for us, we have some specific panels that are 70 volts. So even with one panel, you can charge your 48 volt bank. Like that is possible right now to even have, one solar panel charging a 48 volt bank, even on a smaller vessel that's electric. Say it's 35 feet and you're electric and you don't have a lot of, square footage for solar. It is all doable.
Awesome. I think that Sarah is going to bring over William. William had a couple questions. I want to get William on here before we take off. And there's another one from Jeff, 9 Lives. Jeff, I can't tell if you have a question or if you're just sharing some great advice, but pop a note in the chat really quick, Jeff, if you do have a question you want to come on with. Hey, William, how are you?
Hey, doing good. I had a question about I'm new. We're just looking now at boats and trying to start figuring stuff out, but I've done RVing, and in our RV we have 12 volt battery banks, and we moved to the Victron system. In our home though, we've got 48 volt big battery banks and everything. In the live aboard boats, they're like 40 and under. Are people using 48 volt, or are they using 12 volt battery banks generally?
Generally 12 volts, I would say, is still where boating is at. A lot of your systems are 12 volts, all your navigation equipment, lighting. So it's just easier.
Okay.
People that are going 48 volts, maybe sort of in that, like Katie said, electric or hybrid. Definitely a trend we're seeing because it's easier to store the power, easier to transmit it around the boat. But yeah, you're probably still going to find if you did have a 48 volt house bank, you might need some other way to charge your 12 volt systems. Victron has 48 volt to 12 volt box of tricks that'll do that for you, or you may have just one 12-volt battery bank to power those, and then your 48-volt bank charges your 12-volt bank. So yeah, most boats are 12-volt.
Keep it simple, less is more. That's one of our mottos. And the simpler, the better. Redundancy when you're in these other places and there aren't all these, you're not in Florida. You can't go find a 48-volt specific thing. You're going to be really happy you have a 12-volt system and can go pick up a replacement really quick. I think that's a common thing that people don't understand is like once they're out there, these really high-tech systems are really hard to maintain in remote places. So be mindful of that.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And I do want to say thank you guys so much. This has been really great.
Thanks, William, for joining. Yeah.
Thanks, William. Appreciate it. And good luck on your journey into boating and cruising and whatever your dreams are. I mean, I think the more you can kind of stay in touch with anybody or you reach out to people on the SeaPeople app, you can find me in there, shoot me a DM anytime, and I'll give you Kristin and Lyall and Katie's personal cell phone numbers. Just kidding.
I mean, we always
we'll
try
give
to
them yours.
There is no phone tree at Sun Powered Yachts. You usually get Lyall or me, or leave us a voicemail. We'll call you back. We're definitely those people. There's no dumb questions. Call us. We're here to help.
So I want to wrap up really quick just by chatting a little bit about what happens tomorrow and in the future, and especially when it comes to tariffs and it comes to incentives. You all shared before this some things changing in some of the solar incentives. So maybe you guys take a second. I think it's really important. We're excited to share with people the real Bahamian laws that changed kind of first. And we'd be excited to hear from you what is changing when it comes to solar and solar incentives.
Yeah, I'll take over that. So before 2021, all these federal tax credits were kind of like phasing out and set to expire. And then they got re-upped in 2021 and they were set to expire then in 2032 and they got back to the 30%. So anybody that has a US flagged vessel, or you might actually qualify for state incentives too. So like Florida, Hawaii, if they have specific state solar incentives, we have a tab on our website called tax incentives or tax credits, with a lot of state specific information. But that 30% federal credit in this bill that was just passed on July 4th is set to expire at the end of 2025. So if you want to go solar, buy the equipment now. It doesn't need to necessarily be installed. Nobody's looking at placed in service dates for your vessel, especially if it's a DIY project. We've never really had anybody audited or flagged because most marine systems are way smaller than any kind of residential home system. But to qualify, your boat needs to have a galley, a head, and a bunk, and be US flagged.
And you can get 30% off whatever you're spending on your solar and your battery.
Yes.
Total system cost.
So wiring, installation, did you pay an electrician? Did you buy a new
batteries?
Did you buy a new bimini to put your panels on?
Oh, wow.
All of that factors in.
No, we've had the
did
guys.
You build a hardtop, your stainless davit system, that's 20 grand. All of this is part of it. So now is a really great time to think about those solar projects and at least get the equipment purchased so you have the receipts and can file in February for an installed system in this tax year.
That is huge. I'm not sure if we can iterate that hard enough here. It's
for batteries too. Anything over 250 amp hours. So that's pretty much any boat battery system at this point. So if you want to go lithium and you want to kick back, now is the time to do that because next year this will be gone and you'll only be left with a state incentive if your state offers one.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, I wonder if there was a battle at some point of getting boats kind of deemed abodes and houses to hit these credits, or it just kind of is enough of a gray area.
It's in the IRS ruling of this energy tax credit. Your boat or RV can be considered a second home or your primary home and residence. If it has a galley, head, and bunk, and it's an actual livable space.
Cool.
It's a residential credit for tax credit for going solar, but your residence can be, there's a list on the IRS website, a boat, a van, it could be anything as long as it has that head, galley, and bunk. So it is a residential
space.
It's a boat.
All right. Well, don't miss that. Anybody that's listening today and has made it to this point in the podcast, if you are going to be thinking about this within the next year or two, buy this stuff now, because batteries and panels are a very expensive upgrade. There's no way around that. It is an expensive investment on your boat, and to save 30% on that and move forward that way is a huge, huge perk.
But there is a nuance. If you're doing batteries, you have to have at least one solar panel as part of the system to claim the credit.
Cool.
So even if it's a 50-watt flexible panel, we can help you with that. Like they're not looking at the details. They just want to know that you installed a system of which the batteries are a component.
Well, this is
pick
a
our
good
brains. We're happy. We're not CPAs, putting that out there loud and clear, but we are happy to like troubleshoot or, go over any of this tax credit stuff with you.
It's a good reason and a good reminder of buying with small businesses and businesses that are run by people that are happy to help and walk you through this stuff as opposed to clicking around on Amazon. So yes, anybody reach out to Sun Powered Yachts. They're here with you today and they'll be with you on that solar journey. So definitely hit them up. Kristin, I want to round this out with you a little bit too. I'm not sure if you have anything new or exciting to talk about or anything coming up, or just tell us what's going on with TotalBoat in the next little while.
We will be at the Annapolis Boat Show. We are bringing a couple fiberglass experts with us. Andy Miller from the Boatworks Today channel
Great.
of Boatworks
Cool.
will be there. We're doing the Cruisers University before the show. And then we'll have him in our booth doing some demos, and we're doing the seminar series too, which is all right next to the booth that we were in last year. If you came by, we're sort of near the YouTube people booth and the seminar booth. And then we do have a new product that we launched last week that's sort of funny. Two sort of companion products. One is called 42 million and one is called 52 million. So maybe you know what they would be used for, but they are adhesives. 42 million is not a permanent adhesive, and 52 million is. Those are on our website now, and they're really handy and they're very well priced. So check it out.
Do they come in black and white, or are they? What are our color options?
We only have white right now, but
we're
working on the other colors. There's been a lot of people working on carbon that want black. We're working on that. But 42 million, 52 million new TotalBoat products, and plenty more on the way. I can't really speak to many more of them right now, but we have some other fun stuff coming. But you got to come see us in Annapolis, and if you mention that you saw me here, I'll give you a hat or something. So there you go.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you both for being here. And we're excited to get this pushed onto YouTube in the next couple of days, as well as all the podcast platforms. And so that anybody that missed us here today live can join us there. Thanks, Kristin. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Lyall. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to chat with everybody, and have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks.